Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today we're doing take 2 of my palette roulette series, in which I utilize a palette for a couple weeks in my collection and then I come back to you. I talk to you about my experiences with the palette and any opportunities I see with the palettes. I do live swatches and show you some pictures of the eye looks I was able to create with the palette, and then I do it all over again, and it's actually pretty fun over here, and I dig in real heavy. And today I actually have 2 palettes to go over with you, and they are the ABH Rose Metals and the ABH Nouveau palettes that came out as of the last 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there, and I hope that you're here for it. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a field leader for Ulta Beauty, and therefore I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education here on my channel through things like reviews, but I also just kind of like to talk about makeup. That's why I'm here. And I'm assuming if you're watching, you probably also like to talk about makeup. You're here seeking information on the palettes that you have in your collection, potentially. But ultimately, there's 900 videos for you to choose from here on my channel. I'm sure that you'll find something that you love, and I hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go. With that said, let's roll into this palette review. Okay, so today we're going over 2 palettes. Like I said in the intro, I do have the ABH Nouveau palette and the ABH Rose Metals palette, and both of these palettes came out within the last 6 months. They are both $55 palettes. They both have 12 shades of shadow inside of them, and they both are cruelty-free, Conscious Beauty, slated at Ulta Beauty, and talc-free. For those of you who have a talc sensitivity, these would be great palettes for you. I want to go over them separately and then bring them back together to give you my overall thoughts and then swatches. But this is the ABH Nouveau palette. This one did launch in June and is inspired by the rich hues and duochrome shades of Summer Dreams. Again, $55 for this palette. It is 4.9 stars with 68 reviews on the ABH website, 4.7 stars with 476 reviews on the Sephora website, and 4.6 stars with 126 reviews on the Ulta website. It does have kind of this almost like woven fabric thought process in the component. It does appear to have like metals on the packaging, but this is just like gold leafing with an indent in the packaging, so it looks a little 3D. The front of it is just really plain and says Anastasia Beverly Hills, and the back of it does say Nouveau, and then it has down here the shelf life of 12 months and the cruelty-free status and all the things for the eyeshadow palette. And this is what it looks like on the inside. There is a mirror the full length of the packaging, and then the color story, it looks like so. I do think that it's kind of got this beautiful, like really serene kind of thought process, or inspired thought process to it. It reminds me a little bit of the Lime Crime palette, the Venus palette, or actually the new Natasha Denona one that just came out. And these colors are what is in my eye look today, minus one color from the other palette, and it does kind of give that inspired, romanticized thought process and all the eye looks that you can create with it. This is the first palette that they have launched in quite some time, and it does come with what is slated on the website as a reinvented matte formula. There are 3 finishes in here. There are 5 mattes, 1 duochrome shade, which is this one here, and then 6 metallic shadows. And 3 of these shadows are not meant for eye use, and they are this Wisteria shade here, this shade here called Paloma, and this shade here called Metro. And I am, to be honest, a little bit shocked that this one here is one of the shadows that is slated for not for use around the eyes, because these kind of tones don't normally come with that kind of warning Usually it's like reds or berries in tone. Sometimes duochromes come with that kind of thought process. It's not typically a like ivory shade that comes with that kind of warning. And then we have the rose metals. Rose metals, again, just real simplistic on the front. It says Anastasia Beverly Hills on it. It does have like what appears to be corner rivets on it, but again, it is just a drop down with some like rose gold leafing on this one instead of gold leafing. The component is kind of like an old leathered look of a, like, what would this be, like gunmetal color, kind of weathered leather. And then the back of it just has the sticker again that says rose metals on it, and then it has the 12-month shelf life, cruelty-free status, all the things. And then the inside of the palette also has the full-size mirror, and then this is the color story of this palette. I do think that this palette is a little more gray in tone, obviously inspired by rosy metal tones, and it is, in my humble opinion, kind of vampy, yet grungy, yet really industrial, if that makes any sense. And this one was launched about a month ago at the end of September. There are two different finishes in this palette, mattes and metallics, with 4 mattes and the rest of them being metallics. And one shade in here is not suitable for eye use, and that is this shade here called Dune. This one also, as I said, comes in at that $55 price point. It does have 5 stars on ABH with 13 reviews, 4.7 stars on Sephora with 15 reviews, and 4.6 stars on Ulta with 31 reviews. Again, this one just launched a month ago, so it's not going to have very many reviews on it. So these two palettes are the same size, the same width, the same depth, but when you look at them as compared to an older eyeshadow palette from ABH, you can see they are just a slight bit thinner than the old packaging, and the biggest reason why is because the old packaging came with a brush, and these ones do not come with a brush. These ones also had 14 pans of eyeshadow in them, and these ones have 12. What you will see though is that the pan size on the old packaging is quite a bit smaller than the new packaging. The new packaging has almost double the amount of shadow in it as the old packaging. The old packaging had 0.71 grams of product per pan, and the new packaging has 1.34, almost double the amount of product that the old packaging shadow pans had in them. There are 12 shades in the new packaging, 14 shades in the old packaging. Even though it is a reimagined matte formula, these are still pretty dusty in the pan as you dip in, but far less dusty in the pan than the old formula was. So I can see the reinvention of the matte formula. What I also noticed with the reinvention of the matte formula is the new matte formula, there is not necessarily very many true mattes. And the reason why I say that is because most of the mattes in these palettes did have glitter in them, and y'all know how I feel about glitter in a matte. I think that is the most ridiculous thing to even have graced its presence in our makeup collections. I think it's kind of stupid unless you're going to put glitter in the matte and in a more impactful way so that you can actually see it. What I feel like happens with glitter in mattes is that it actually creates a little bit of skipping, a little bit of patchiness that doesn't have to be there with a really good matte. What I will say is that even though these mattes, most of them did have glitter in them, I didn't really notice the skipping and the patchiness in these mattes that I notice in a lot of other different brands that do have glitter in mattes. And a lot of brands are doing it, so like I'm not going to fault them for, you know, jumping on that bandwagon, but I do think that that maybe has helped represent the mattes in a different way in these eyeshadow palettes, in that there is far less fallout in the mattes in the new formula than there was in the old formula. I used to come to you and say, if you are offended by fallout, ABH is not the brand for you. I would say that there's still an amount of fallout that you're going to get from these palettes, but it is far less than what you would get from a matte in the old formula. You're still going to see a good amount of fallout in the shimmers. And what I also noticed about these shimmers that I didn't find to be true in the older ABH formula shimmers is that these ones are a lot more chunky, and very few of them are really emollient and have that like almost creamy feel to them. A lot of them feel a little bit more dry, not bad dry, but a lot more dry than the old formula for the shimmers or metallics that ABH had. There's only one to speak of that has a more like slippy feel to it, and it's this one over here, which I feel like actually performs more like a tapper than it does an actual shimmer on the lid. It is on my lid space today, but it is in the like inner corner and built out into the center of the lid because it just wasn't as impactful as I wanted it to be on the overall lid space. So I kept it on the inner corner and tapped a different shadow over the top on the lid. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with the drier formula for the shimmers, but I just wanted to let you know that that's how I feel the shimmers were represented in this new palette formulation than the old ones. They still are super blendable, all of them. Even the shimmers I found blended into the crease just fine, blended into the other shimmers just fine, and the mattes blended over the top of them just fine. There was no problems in blendability, no problems in buildability, and no problems in longevity on an eye look. I feel like they lasted the same, 10 to 12 to 14, 16, 28 hours that the old ABH formula did. I know that in this formulation for ABH, I have, been not proud of moments where I have actually fallen asleep with my makeup on my face, woke up the next morning, wiped all the rest of my makeup off, but left my eye look on because it still looked almost 100% intact. Would just touch it up vaguely and then walk out the door with this eye look that I've worn for 2 days, and it was still really good. I don't have eyelids that eat my eye makeup away, so that may be just a my capability kind of thing, but these shadows did last for flipping ever on my eyes, and I feel that way about the new formulation as well. I would say that the shimmers, because they're a little bit more dry, are going to take a little bit more work to, make sure that they stay intact on your eye space, but I didn't have to wet them to get the same impact that I had when they were wet, and I didn't have to wet them to get the same longevity that I did have when they were wet. So love them, still think that they last 10 to 12 hours, work well with a primer, work well without a primer. You're not going to see very many performance indicators that are different dependent on, you and your process in these palettes like you might with some other palettes. I would say that if I had to pick a color story that I had more fun working with, it would be this one. The Nouveau one was just a little bit lighter, and I feel like had a little bit more depth in it than the Rose Metals did. And that's because it goes from really light to really deep. I had a little bit of everything in between. I would say the only thing I did not like about this palette is that these two shades in the middle, like this, lavender shade here and this dual chrome shade here, I don't really feel like suited the palette. The lavender shade it doesn't make any sense in my humble opinion in the palette, but ABH has been the epitome of pop of color in all their palettes, so it doesn't surprise me that it's in there, and it was a really beautiful shade. I just do feel like it's probably a shade that suits itself or lends better to a one and done eye look than it does a companion to any of the other shadows in this palette. I wore it as an inner corner more often than anything else. This palette, I felt like was really dark, but lacked depth, if that makes any sense. Like, there is some deep shadows in here, and it does go really dark, but it doesn't go very light. There's not a whole lot of medium tones in here to play well with a lighter tone in here and a deeper tone in here. There's just deep, dark, industrial. It's funny because I was watching a palette ranking by Angelica Niequez the other day, a couple days ago, I guess at this point, and she had ranked this palette in this ranking of 28 different palettes, and this one actually ranked really low, and she was like, I like the formula, and I do like the formula of this as well. She said, I like the formula, there's nothing wrong with the formula, it's a beautiful formula, but I feel like every eye look I did went really gray on me, and it looked like grungy dirty, not good grungy dirty, but like grungy dirty, I need to take a shower, or something along those lines. And I feel that. I definitely see that being also something that I could see happening. I don't necessarily think that this made my eyes look dirty or my face look dirty, but it wasn't my favorite to get an eye look out of just using this palette. And I also think that it is very industrial in tone. It's rose metals. There is a lot of rosiness to this, but it's more like gunmetal rosy than it is like pretty rosy, if that makes any sense. And you'll see the swatches. They're beautiful swatches, beautiful tones. This one's one of my favorites in here. But this one also lacks a good ratio of mattes to shimmers. There's 4 mattes in this palette, and the rest are shimmers. That also said, while I get that there is 200% more product in each pan in this eyeshadow, in these eyeshadow palettes, I would have rather had the smaller eyeshadow pans and had 2 more shades in each one of these palettes, because I just feel like there's a lot missing, right? I think that we could have had a couple more mattes in this palette, maybe one more that's a little bit deeper, maybe even a little bit more green than this one, because even though this looks like a green eyeshadow palette, it's more like khaki neutrals with a pop than it is anything else. And then this one I feel like definitely needed 2 more matte eyeshadows, and I would have rather had 2 more mattes in each palette than had 200% more product in each palette than what was coming in these palettes. Does that make sense? Like, sure, don't give me the brush. Nobody likes those stupid brushes that they were putting in the palettes anyways, but I still want 14 pans of eyeshadow that are collaborative with each other and work really well to communicate effectively on your eye look what you want to communicate on your eye with your eye look. And I don't feel like that happens with these shadows, because this one lacks, you know, depth, and this one lacks mattes. Does that make sense? I hope so. Let's do some swatches and then we'll get out of here. It looks like the sun is trying to come in, so I really want to try and get through this fast. And when I said take 2 at the beginning of this, it's because I've already recorded this video one time, and for whatever reason it didn't damn well record. So this is take 2. Different day. I already tried to edit it and it just didn't work for me. So I am going to swatch Nouveau first. Okay, the first one I have is Wings. Wings is a metallic, like sagey silver, a really gorgeous color. It is in my eye look today. It's all over the lid and it is just so beautiful, and it really, really goes really well with a lot of the mattes in this palette. And then I have Isle, which is a metallic, like buttery gold, like margarine is what it looks like. Then we have Belle. Belle is a medium metallic antique bronze shade, kind of leans a little bit on the green side. Then we have Wisteria. Wisteria is a matte lavender, and this one does have glitter in its formulation for mattes, and this one is also one of the ones that is not safe for eye use. And then we have Lily. Lily is a metallic rose gold. This one has multiple different colored glitters in it, so it kind of has different colored reflex dependent on like what you're partnering it with and what lighting is hitting it. It's gonna look different. It's not quite duochrome, but it is multi-reflective. Then we have Hope. and Hope is a metallic olive. All right, second row in this one, Paloma is the first one. This is, again, another one that is not safe for eye use. This one is a matte ivory. This one also has glitter flecks in it. Then we have Floor. Floor is a matte peach without the glitter. Then we have Liberty. Liberty is a matte hunter green without the glitter. Then we have Peacock, which is the duochrome in the palette, and it has kind of a blue, green, brown, duochrome shiftiness to it. Then we have Metro, which is the last not safe for eye use shadow in this palette, and it is a matte terracotta shade. And then we have Muse. Muse is a metallic chocolate brown. This is the shadow that I had the most fallout from in my experiences with this palette, but that is all of the shadows in the Nouveau palette. Okay, for the Rose Metals palette, our first one is Rose Quartz. Rose Quartz is a metallic, like pinky champagne. Then we have Royal, which is a burgundy sparkler metallic tone. Really, really pretty. Then we have Haze. Haze is a metallic multi-dimensional gold, meaning it's a gold, but it has like green and gold and like copper glitters in it, so it could pair well with many different mattes and look good. And then we have Rose Fire, which is a metallic straight up copper. And then we have Sun Rose, which is the first matte in the palette, and Sun Rose is a matte peachy sand toned. This does have glitter in it. The next shade and the last one in the top row was Nova, and Nova is a metallic like golden bronze tone. First shade in the second row is the one that I said it has a little bit more like slip to it and emollients to it, and doesn't really have a whole lot of base to it, if I'm honest. I 100% think that this is more of a topper shade than anything else. This one is called Heavenly, and it is a metallic like white gold. It's really pretty. It just, there's not a whole lot of oomph to it. Then we have Element. Element is a metallic deep rose. Then we have Ashes. Ashes is a matte gray taupe. This is a matte with glitter. Okay, then we have Dune, which is not safe for eye use, and Dune is a matte red brown. This one does not have glitter in it. Then we have Nocturne. Nocturne is a beautiful metallic like gunmetal shade with different glitters in it. And then we have Noble, which is a matte brown that's kind of on the plummier side. So those are the shades in the two palettes. I think that you can see that there is a lot of beautiful shimmers in these palettes, but I think that, you know, I am, for me and my tastes, I am more of a person who really likes more of a 50-50 ratio when it comes to mattes to shimmers, or like tops, like 60-40. This is more like 70-30, or, you know, 80-20. And I don't love that. And when I think about like ease of use, and if I were to pull these above any other palette in my collection, what palettes would those be? And I don't necessarily know. I don't know that I would pick these ones over a different palette, just because of the sheer lack of mattes in these palettes. With that said, the mattes in these palettes are divine. They are a lot better than the previous ABH mattes, and I would say the glitter doesn't even come close to creating opportunity in the blendability or buildability of the matte shades. I think that they perform just fine, regardless of whether there's glitter in them. I'm happy to have these in my collection, but I, bottom line, would have loved to have seen a few more mats in each one of these palettes, and I would have loved to spend the $55 on 14 shades. Back in the day, these were $49, I want to say, for 14 shades and a brush. These are $55, so $6 more, and you're getting 2 less shades. Granted, you're getting more shadow in each pan, but you're getting 2 less shades and no brush. So, like, I don't know, make it make sense, guys. I just don't, I get it. Inflation, everything is getting up there in cost, but I just don't understand the higher price point for less. Color me confused. With that said, I am going to go pull some new palettes to use over the next couple weeks, and I will be right back. Okay, so I had a very particular palette that I wanted to pull in for this week, and because of that particular palette, I had to find some, I really wanted an all matte palette to go with it. So the one palette that I'm choosing to come to next week with is this one. This is the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 3, the Experience palette, and it is the 8-pan palette of her like shimmery shades. I could not do the 12-pan with all the, or 14-pan, whatever it is, with all the wonky shades, and I just know that I would struggle bus with that and get pissed off at the palette and probably never use it again. I just wanted the littler one, and this was still a grip ton of money. So why I spent that much on 8 shadows, I will never know, but I did want to bring this in to utilize throughout the week. But it is all shimmers, multi-chromes, or whatever it is in this palette, so I wanted to partner it with an all matte eyeshadow palette. I couldn't find an all matte eyeshadow palette in my collection at first that I hadn't used, but then I went into what I remember was in my backup drawers, and these I've had in my collection for so long, and I've never used them, and I don't know why, if I'm honest. I got them at TJ Maxx, and I think I maybe got them at TJ Maxx during a time when this brand was boycotted, and that might be why I've never used them. But the palettes that I'm bringing out to work with the Danessa Myricks palettes are, these are the Kat Von D Shade in Light Eye quads. So there's 2, one is rust and one is plum. So this is what the rust one looks like, and it has got like browns and orange, and it's all mattes. There's 4 shadows in there, and then the plum one looks like this with some pinks and purples. And I do think that they will perfectly go with what we've got in the Danessa Myricks palette, and I'm super stoked to try them out together and to come back to you and talk to you guys about them next week. With that said, if this was fun for you, if you had a blast, I hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go, but do be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. It really does help our channels out here, especially for the very small creator that I am, and I do hope that at the end of the day you liked it or liked me enough that you'll want to stick around, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you're notified every time I upload. I would love to have you along for this crazy ride of mine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you all are having a wonderful day. I hope that if you're in the States and your holiday is tomorrow, that you are going to have a wonderful holiday and surround yourself with all the good things in life, friends, family, love, blessings all around. I hope that everybody is having a wonderful week, a wonderful month, a wonderful day. I hope that you and yours are healthy and safe and staying warm out there, and I hope that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.